Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this special presentation of TV Bakwetu. I'm your host, Linda Banks, and if you could kindly let me know where you're watching us from, that will be amazing. Now, it's exactly 2100 hours Central African time, and welcome to this special presentation of the Linda Banks Show. And I'm your host, Linda Banks, okay, in case you didn't notice that. Now, it's been exactly 12 months and 48 hours since 2.8 million Zambians, 2.8 million of you, that's a colossal amount. Many of you are quite young, vibrant, yet hungry for opportunities. So you looked around your surroundings, qualified, yet no jobs. If you complained, you were locked up, cadres flaunting large sums of money, in your hungry faces, leaders abusing their power, no freedom of speech. And if, God forbid, the youths took to social media, they were met with a barrage of insults by party cadres. Some had actually had their social media shut down. Some were beaten, whilst others sadly were shot dead. Press freedoms were trifled with. We saw a closure of Prime TV, for instance, at the mere command of the then commander in chief. Media houses were set up quite all right, but licenses were given to either serving ministers or those who sang praises to the ruling party. Day in and day out, youth saw their leaders imprisoned, on very trumped up charges, quite frankly. There was no rule of law. Cadres were running amok in markets, at bus stops. The police force was honestly left very toothless. The youths had reached the end of their tether. Some took to the bush to alert the world of their suffering, and up came a band of brothers. Now, we're using this phrase rather collectively, as there were hundreds and thousands of young people, youths, both male and female, whose shoulders 007 stood on. It suddenly dawned on these young people that they had put ungrateful men and women, the so-called leaders that they had put in office. They had this legal mandate to put them in office, and they realized that they could use the same legal mandate at the ballot box to get rid of them. Now, as we continue to mark the 1 year anniversary of the UPND government, or the New Dawn government in office, tonight we're going to zero in on a particular story, a very touching story, a story about two young men whose lives collided with destiny. So, viewers, help me welcome to the Linda Banks Show on TV Bakwetu, one of those young men, Mr. Mubita now. Mr. Nawa, welcome to the program. I should say welcome back.
Thank you very much, Linda. Good evening. Thank you very much, viewers. It is a pleasure to be joined by you and to be on your show. What a tremendous honor it is. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. Now, as you can see, we only have one person. We're waiting for Mr. Anthony Bwalya. He has been working on the copper belt. So hopefully he will join us very shortly. Now, Mr. Nawa, it's lovely to see you. We're going to obviously start from the beginning, and when Anthony joins us, we can pick up the story. Now, you were one of those people who were arrested several times. And previously, you were a very law-abiding citizen, but I want you to start from when you, or were you? Perhaps we should ask, were you a law-abiding citizen prior to this?
Allow me to start our interview today, or conversation, with a quotation by Mark Twain. Mark Twain said, and I quote, "The fear of death follows from the fear of life. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time. The fear of death follows from the fear of life. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time." Mark Twain, end of quote. Like you said, Linda, I was a very quiet person. I was in the corporate world. I was doing staff training, leadership development, motivation. I was empowering companies, communities, individuals. And I was traveling across Southern Africa, sometimes in Europe, to do the same thing.
Mm,
And I did what I did in the private sector as a businessman because of conviction. And I
mhm,
felt at that time that it was my chosen destiny to serve the magnitude, to serve the citizens of my country and of my continent. Now, that quiet life was disturbed by the happenings in society. And I came across another quote at that time that said, oh, I'd heard it prior to, but it resonated real deep. The quote that says, evil will always persist as long as good men or good women do nothing at all. That's
mm,
when I had a turning point, an epiphany. I had a memorandum of understanding with my own soul, to which I
mm,
asked myself, Mubita, if you're really a powerful person that you say you are, if you are really an influential person that you say you are, and if you really are a person who wants to contribute to national development in your own way,
mhm.
are you going to stay quiet when you know that you can use your voice to serve and perhaps save society? That was a turning point.
Mm. Now, both you and Anthony are a product in part of diaspora. Anthony spent some time here in the United Kingdom, and you served under uh, the incredible pastor that he is, TD Jakes in Houston, Texas. Now, I'm just curious as to what did you learn there that made you think that you and the rest of Zambia deserve better from your leaders?
As a matter of fact, it is Dallas, Texas, which is
Ah,
just about 2 hours drive from Houston, which is the capital city of Texas. But
mhm,
in serving Bishop T.D. Jakes, who I served from 29th December 1999 until 8 years later after that, or
mhm.
7.5 to be specific, it
Yeah.
taught me how to grieve in public, how to fight personal battles publicly, how to mobilize, how to stand up for truth. T.D.
Mhm,
Jakes also taught me how to stay quiet when your enemies are talking.
mhm,
It was a phenomenal thing I learned from Bishop Jakes, how he never, ever, ever, ever responded to his critics. He just kept
mhm,
going. T.D. Jakes taught me the spirit of excellency, the spirit of timekeeping, the spirit of doing whatever you do with so much
mhm,
passion. So I feel that that kind of background, and also he still is a very fierce man. You know, he has no fear in him. He speaks his mind.
mhm.
So having come from that kind of background, the American
Yeah.
um, sensational way of going after what you want, I think it comforted me somehow to deal with my own fears, because the convictions that I had in America were different from the ground realities here in our country. America has free speech, free liberties for all, justice and peace for all. At that time in Zambia, that was not the case. So, nonetheless, it still helped me push ahead in terms of just having a proper understanding of myself, of my environment, as well as the repercussions that were going to follow because of that decision.
Hmm. You talk about the art of timekeeping. And that's the one thing I absolutely appreciate about you. Every time in the past we've worked on any project, you literally keep on time, bang on time, everything is done. So I'm sure Pastor TD Jakes will be very proud that you actually have adopted that. Don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, timekeeping is not about respecting others, it's about respecting yourself, and
Yeah.
just sure you're ready for whatever task. As long as you say yes to something, I think it's
Mhm.
very important you are prepared as a man, as a woman, to show up. And that's what we did in the political environment. We said yes to to the calling of God. I believe it was a call of God because it came with so much personal sacrifice, but it also came with so much personal fulfillment.
Mhm. That's wonderful. Um, So, what were you dissatisfied about in this country, in Zambia, that made you think, I'm going to jump on this bandwagon and join Hakainde Hichilema with his team to try and change the trajectory of this country? What was it about the situation that made you uh, change your mind and from the corporate world into politics?
I would be amiss if I suggested by any means that I literally jumped into the deep end of politics as if I just woke up and said, "Let me join President Hakainde Hichilema and others." It didn't come like that.
Hmm.
It started with the youth movement. If you remember the 13 youths that went into the bush to protest on June 22nd, 2000.
Hmm.
Patos, the Biflos, the Wezis, the Michaels, Zulu, and all the Muletas and the Nawas. I was part of that team. So it
Mm.
started with young people asking for a freedom that was guaranteed in the Bill of Rights of Zambia, which includes freedom of association, freedom
Mm.
of religion, freedom of movement, freedom of speech. Those are guaranteed rights in the Freedom Charter of Zambia, in the Bill of Rights of Zambia, in the Constitution of Zambia. And at that time, we had parliamentarians who would say, uh, break the bonds of these young people. We had leaders who would say these young people are anarchists. We had all kinds of threats. You would be arrested just for meeting. And I just felt suffocated, to be honest with you. I mean, and like you, and rightly put, when I remember my life in America, I realized that part of what makes America great is that people are
Mm.
free to exercise their rights. And I felt that Zambia was being constrained constitutionally. Zambian was being constricted. The oxygen of human rights was being violated in Zambia at that time. So that's how I
Mm.
started. When we had a successful youth movement,
Yeah.
at that point, then I decided to say goodbye to my colleagues in the youth movement, to thank them, to profusely thank them because they were an amazing group of 12 people. Mukuka, Joseph Mukuka from Wapula, amazing, the best 12 people you can ever work with, including
Hmm.
I said goodbye to them and I gave myself 6 months to
Hmm.
sit and wait. Linda, it was like Mississippi burning. The world was changing so rapidly. It took me 2 months. I couldn't even keep the 6 months promise to myself, celibacy from all political activity. It took me two
Mm.
months, and at that point, again, I had another decision to make. Do I join this party or that party? And that's when
Mm.
I joined UPND.
Now, at that time, it was very unpopular to belong to the UPND. Why did you decide UPND was the party for you?
So I looked at my personal gifts. I was a very good speaker. I was a very good
Hmm.
mobilizer. Um, just as a backdrop, Linda, when I was in secondary school, my
Hmm.
headmaster used to my headmaster used to fear me. Apparently, my headmaster said, and I quote, "This Mubita boy can cause trouble." So that was the label that my headmaster had on me, and he always used
Good
to say,
trouble.
"Keep My headmaster used to say, keep Mubita happy and you'll keep the school happy." So I remember that
I think we're having sound trouble with Mr. Nawa. Can you hear me? Ah,
can
you're
you
back.
hear?
You're back now. I
Can you
think
hear?
we're, yes, I can.
I was just sorry about that. I was saying I felt that I needed to complement the party in
Hmm.
terms of articulation, in terms of mobilization, and in terms of galvanizing the young vote. I felt that I represented something. And apart from that, I also felt that the party itself represented a lot. The vision of Anderson Mazoka, the vision of
Hmm.
President Hakainde, the history of the UPND, and in my view, at that time, they were the best vehicle to deliver the change that Zambia needed. And in
Mm,
politics, you have to be strategic, you have to be methodical, and you have to be thorough. If you're just going to
sure.
make decisions in politics anyhow, you're going to have a
Mhm.
very short life. So that's how I decided to join the UPND, and I've never looked back since.
Hmm. So things were terrible in the country, but particularly just before elections, right? The political environment was so tense that you could almost cut the tension with a knife. Most of us would literally just sneak into the country and sneak out. But in as bad as this was for us, sneaking in and out, things were particularly awful for you two, you and Anthony, and several other youths. Um, Obviously, if you said something, you'd be arrested. If you kind of posted anything, you would be harassed, like we said earlier. But there was something awful that happened. There was a warrant of arrest for you at some point. Viewers, this actually meant that these two honorable gentlemen, Anthony and Mubita, were to be arrested on site in every corner of Zambia, from Vlira to Chadiza, all the way to Chibombo, if they were found. Now, Mubita, what was going through your mind at that point, from Leafy, Texas, to being a wanted criminal in your own motherland? Pray tell, what did you do so bad that you were a wanted man?
I remember succinctly where I was that day. I was in Northwestern Province. I had just done a marathon through Western Province, Central Province, and within Western Province, many parts. Then I had moved through the bush, through the night, because the way we were moving, particularly myself, we were moving like mafias. We were
Mm,
moving in very clandestine, sometimes conspicuous, sometimes inconspicuous ways, just to confuse the enemy. We knew that we were being trailed. We knew that we were being hunted. And I had just made an announcement that I was going to go into Luapula because Luapula province was a very hotbed. I knew, and the party knew, and many political analysts knew, that whoever
mm,
was going to win this election had to win
mm,
Eastern Province and had to win Copperbelt Province. At that time, my colleague Anthony was also on the road. He was doing circuits in Indola. He was doing a
mm.
circuit on the belt in Kipri, in particular, Mufulira. And
Yeah.
both Anthony and I think, were about to confluence on the Luapula province. And they needed to stop us from entering Luapula province or entering whatever phase we were going to enter in the terms of the marketing ability, the communication machinery that we had set in place. And so early one morning at around 6, I got a notification by a very dear colleague within the party. He says, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stop it, check out, and move. It was horrible, Linda. It was horrible. I had to abandon my vehicle. I had to book another vehicle, book a driver, drove throughout the night. I wore a wig, I wore shades like a lady, and allowed
God.
that driver to drive, and I covered myself. And he drove me up to a certain area. From there, I drove myself throughout the night until Kabwe, and I came across one checkpoint in Kabwe, and this was now 03 in the morning. And this
Mm.
lady said, your disc is expired. Your license on the car is expired. And I said to her, Madam, and I opened my window only that bit. Here I am
Yeah. As a
in a wig,
lady.
as a lady at 03:30. I say to her, I have COVID and I cannot open this window. She says, open the window. I said, I have COVID. If I open this window, I'm going to
Mm.
give you COVID. And she says, you
Gosh.
must open. By God's grace, I just forced my way and somehow her heart let me go. And that's how I arrived in Lusaka on a Saturday morning, changed houses, and it was just commotion. But that very week on a Tuesday, our lawyer escorted us to the police and we were formally arrested.
So, on what charges were you formally arrested?
So we had done a show, and thank God this case is no longer in court, so we can now talk about it. So we
Yeah.
had done a show, Anthony and I had done a show on one of the TV stations,
Hmm.
and we were basically at that point saying there was a plan, a scheme to undermine the vote by registering illegal voters, including minors. And we had come into certain scenarios where we had evidence which we presented on a TV station. So the charges later on would follow that we had stolen NRC documents and
Gosh.
we had uttered false statements and so on and so forth. And we were five jointly charged. Unfortunately, one of the jointly charged people passed away as a result of, officially as a result of COVID, but a lot of people say that she just couldn't handle the depression of being framed in that. And the sad thing is, even after we reached Mansa, when the judge was told that a colleague had died, the judge says, okay, let's continue with the case. The rest of you are still being charged. It was a very painful situation.
Hmm. Talking of that, actually, a colleague who passed away, do you, as UPND, have a plan to honor these gallant men and women who died during the struggle?
Linda, in the process of making history, in the process of transitioning, in the process of building, there is going to be a lot of people to sacrifice. Some will
Yeah,
sacrifice and some will sacrifice resources. Unfortunately, some will sacrifice with blood. In the
yeah,
case of John, for example, and in Samasama and many others, there are many people who have died throughout this
yeah.
struggle. And I can't speak for the party in terms of honoring them
Mm.
individually. It's a very difficult task to honor each person because there are so many.
Perhaps collectively, there's so many, and this is where I was hoping Anthony would be here to answer on behalf of the president, because this is quite important to honor them collectively. You're right. It's not possible to honor each one of them, and like you said, uh, during a struggle, there will be some people who will sacrifice, who make the ultimate sacrifice. But this is the 21st century. My father made that ultimate sacrifice, but that was a long time ago. Should young people still be making that ultimate sacrifice? He was only 2021, just before his 21st birthday. In the 21st century, should young people still be dying?
In the case where power, ultimate power, corrupts people ultimately, sacrifices have to be made by some, by all where possible. And if you look at the 2021 elections, in my personal view, it was a sacrifice by the whole nation. And one of the
Mm,
ways honor everybody, and this should resonate with any politician, is to fulfill the
mm,
promises that we stood and we campaigned, and to stay steadfast to ensuring that, number one, we fulfill all the promises, because if we don't want to fulfill all of them, then we should make sure if we need more time, maybe a second term or a third
mm,
term, or third term to fulfill, then let's do that. But ultimately, that should be the goal of every politician, to fulfill the dreams that they stood upon. I think by doing that, that is the greatest honor we can give the electorate. Number two, where possible, let us individually select certain individuals. For example, the lady that was honored at Africa Freedom Day at State House, the one that
mm.
was badly beaten and terrorized, she was a
Yes.
symbol of, of sacrifice. And I
Yeah.
remember that the president hugging her. It was the most teary moment of that whole
Yeah.
function, the epitome of that function. And I think many more people will be remembered as we go on. And those who
Mm,
feel they are not remembered, I think they should hold on. Don't lose hope. I think
yeah.
we didn't fight for bread only. Uh, we fought to sit at the table. Okay? So if the table may still be empty in some areas, cutlery may be missing, the food is not quite enough, you are seated at the table. And this table is called Zambia, a new nation, a nation of freedoms, a nation of fresh air, a nation where akasaka kandalama takali mu minwe ya muntu, for example, or a nation where parliamentarians don't say, I'm the lawmaker, I will use the law in my own heart. A nation where members of parliament who are lawyers are not saying we shall break your bones. A nation where even permanent secretaries who may have one or two challenges can be dismissed right in our very own eyes without any distinction or even cover up. I think that is the nation we fought for. I'll give you another subtle example, Linda. I got a call 3 days ago from a lady who said, Mubita, I've been out of employment for 9 years, waiting for my pension. And my account has been with so much money. Can you find out if I have this money or not? And I made a follow-up on her, made some investigations, and I called her back and said, that is your money. That's your pension. That is money that was owed to you from 9 years ago.
Yeah.
That is sitting at the table.
Yeah. Sitting at the table. That is quite profound. You always have these profound little nuggets that people can take home with. Now, viewers, if you have just joined us, you're watching the Linda Banks Show on TV Bakwetu. Thank you so much for joining this conversation. If you could kindly share the link tag, I can see quite a lot of comments just coming in. We're going to go through the conversation and then I will have a look at the comments and the questions. Keep the questions that you may have for Mr. Nawa and for Mr. Bwalya as well. And we will have a look at them. Make sure you tag your friends. We have had challenges with the TV Bakwetu Facebook page. I think Mark Zuckerberg has put us quiet, Mubita, if you can believe that. For some reason, I don't know what we did. So they're not showing it quite widely to as many people as possible. So if you could share that, that will be amazing. Now, I'm very curious as how your destiny with Anthony collided. How did you guys meet?
So I joined the UPND, and no sooner had I joined than I got really active. Remember, I was on a 6-month sabbatical, which was interrupted by conscientiousness. You know, when you are conscious, you can't let a child drown, even when you don't know how to swim. You might say to yourself, let me die and let the child survive. So no sooner had I joined the party than I began to run around and talk, and there was all this excitement on Facebook and all this criticism. And then I received a call from a handler within a party who said, you know what, I would like you to meet someone. I think you and this guy will do a lot of wonders. I had heard of Anthony prior to that through radio interviews, but not so much really followed him and tagged along with him. So this handler then set a meeting between, first of all, he met me alone to explain to me what they were planning on doing. And basically they thought Anthony and I would work really well, and to which they were absolutely right. So the following meeting, they set up a meeting between myself and Anthony. And it was just like glove and hand. I mean, it was just like TikTok and an iPhone. You know, we were
hence SIM card na phone. Hence the band of brothers.
And you know, we were two different people. Him is an accountant. I am a marketer, banker, but we had a certain fiber and common thread. And soon after that, we did a lot of interviews together. And immediately after that, I did the infamous or famous debate on Movie TV with Sunday Chanda. And, the rest, they say, is history.
So there's this talk in the public fora as who introduced who to the president.
Okay, so Anthony had already been with the president for over a year or nearly a year, but certainly I think at least 8 months, let me put it that way, or just for a long time. And
Mhm.
so there was a meeting with myself and the handler. Then there was a meeting with myself and Anthony, and me and Anthony just started working. That's all. We just got
Mhm.
to work. Radio after radio. There were days we would do 3 interviews in a day, 4 interviews in a day. We were just
Yes.
everywhere. And then soon after that, a meeting was arranged between the handler, Anthony, myself, and the president. And
Mhm.
we had a chat with the president that day. He shared with us his vision and he expressed his gratitude and he shared with us many, many things. And that was it. Me and Anthony rarely ever bothered the president for anything. Never. We were just always working. Our hands were on the plow, and we, I tell you, that was, allow me with all due respect to say, that was nonsensical commitment. I mean, we were, we dived into that pool without any second thought. We were ready to
Yeah.
die, absolutely ready to die.
Nonsensical commitment, and that nonsensical commitment led you to the prison together. We will revisit that, but the nonsensical commitment may actually made you work so diligently together. And there are those who have this view that you have had a raw side of the deal whilst Anthony has got to where perhaps he wanted. How do you respond to that?
First of all, there are 2.8 million people who voted for UPND, and there will
Mm.
probably be more in 2026 who will do so. And all these people had a role to play in the victory of the country.
Yeah.
And each one came to the party with a particular skill. By
Mhm.
the way, even the day that we were promoted, by the way, we were promoted officially on the same day, and our pictures were on the president's Facebook page. Even when we were working, there were still people who felt we didn't deserve to be where we were. There were others who felt they had been in the party longer than us. They needed to take certain positions. There will always be people who will talk. Even if Anthony did something else and I did what Anthony is doing now, there would still be
Mhm.
people talking that because um, in politics, a lot of opinions will be there.
Mhm.
I have a job right now. I work, but my role is not the same as Anthony. Anthony has a job too. He works. And that's very important to distinguish. And there are many other people right now serving and working. 30,000 uh, teachers, 11,000 health workers, 5,000 soldiers to soon to be recruited, many other
Yeah.
people in civil service, 8,000 census. They are all serving. Even somebody on their knees is also serving through prayer and standing in the gap.
Yeah.
I would
Absolutely.
like to, I would like to lay that conversation to bed today by
Mhm.
simply saying, I'm happy. I'm very happy. I am serving, and I think anybody with eyes can see that I'm serving. And I
Mhm.
think that should be the end of the conversation. You shouldn't you shouldn't enter a mansion wanting to sleep in the master bedroom. You should never do that. You should never do that, especially when the mansion is a service vehicle. We came
Yeah.
to serve, Linda. We came to serve. We didn't come for appointments. And leadership is about service to people. And for me, I'm
Mm.
truly honored to be where I am, to serve in my capacity at the moment. And I think people should be happy that that's what it is.
Servant-led leadership, and this is what this president advocates for. And you have very eloquently put that to bed. So you are both very content in the positions that you're doing. Um, Now, I wondered who is the best storyteller between the two of you, because I have got a couple of stories that I wanted you to go through, and I think this was going to be quite fun if Anthony was here. So there was the Chapata incident where 087 was quite the master of negotiating his way through things. We can laugh about it now, but it wasn't remotely funny at the time. What are your most memorable experiences, both positive and negative, whilst on the campaign trail?
I will give you a very funny experience, and this I'll never forget. And maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but I have to tell you this story.
Okay.
I was at Kabwata police. At that time, I was on my 9th day or something. That's when I was arrested for allegedly insulting the head of
Mm.
state. And Anthony had come to see me. Now, when he came to see me at the police, I was then called to the interview room to interrogate
Mhm.
me about several issues.
Mhm.
Now, when I came back into the cell, they brought me back into the cell. Guess who I found in the cell? Anthony.
Who? What was he doing there? What had he done?
He was arrested for taking a picture outside the police.
Oh, a selfie.
Not a selfie. I don't know what was happening anyway, but there was such a story. Linda, I looked at Anthony.
It was, at the time, it wasn't funny, but now we can laugh about it.
It has never been funny. Up to now, it isn't funny. I looked at him, no
Yeah,
shoes. You know, when you find somebody in your cell
yeah.
with other people, no shoes, you know they are arrested, okay?
Mm.
And Tony was there and he was like, hey man. I was like, which man?
As you do, as you do. Hey, man.
In the cell laughed out. I was like, I was frantic. I was like, Anthony, and Anthony has this weird sense of humor sometimes. And he was like, yep, I'm here, man. I missed you this much. And Linda, not only did they arrest Anthony, he spent the night in the cell that day with me and the 30 something other people. And
Goodness.
we never slept. We spoke the whole night. And one of the cellmates said to me in the morning, when we finally slept a wink or so, he said to
Mhm.
me, wow, boss, nikalipenda kumvera nikuona ukamba chizungu munga chemwa kamba usiku, you know.
The diaspora Chizungu.
I had missed that intellectual talk, you know. I mean,
I
me and
know.
Anthony, me and Anthony can talk about groundnuts, and you'd think we're talking about a nuclear fertilizer plant.
It's quite fascinating. He spent literally a stunt in the United Kingdom, and he comes back speaking Shakespearean, Dickensian English. I've been here years, and I still sound very Zambian. I needed to ask him that. It's like, how? Yourself included. So how can
Oh,
you discuss groundnuts on an intellectual
spoke.
level?
I was just like, brother, I was like, I hate to have you here, but thank God you're here. And you know, it was just so that
What's
was
an
one of the
interesting? Mhm. Go on.
okay.
No, I was just going to say it's quite a hilarious story, but we shouldn't really be laughing. That was serious. You were in police custody for him having taken a photograph in front of the police station, which was the most ridiculous thing. We have got people who have stolen from the Zambian people, and they're in and out of police cells within hours. So, it does it make sense?
Very little things made sense at the time, but we were just like soldiers with a commitment, and
Mm,
fought a battle together with many other people. You see, one of the things we should all know as a nation is that there are so many people who made
mm,
this success. It's not just one or two or three people. There are so many
mm.
people. We just did our part and we were just making history and we didn't even realize who were part of history.
I'm fascinated by the Chapata incident, amongst your many incredible stories that you can tell. Quite frankly, I feel there could be a book somewhere with just the encounters that you guys had, and include this is including the president. I feel awful saying you guys, but collectively, you people as the UPND. Could you just share with our viewers how that Chapata incident came to be?
So we were on a tour, a marathon, and the president needed to push because a lot of our campaign was never allowed.
Yeah.
We were never allowed to attend funerals. We were never allowed to travel. We were never allowed to be on TV. So finally, there was a small window, and that window was a little bit actually of defiance of some sort. I think if I remember correctly, our first stop in Eastern Province was Lundazi, and then we were now coming to Chapata. But there was already an advanced party in Chapata, and they were on their way to the airport. The president had already landed by the strip. As the president was fighting and negotiating to enter Chapata, which he was blocked, by the way, but through divine providence, that police officer bowed to the convictions of the soul and the heart. There is always going to be a few good people who will never completely allow evil to thrive. God always has a remnant.
Yeah.
And at that time when the president was out by the gate negotiating, I was on the other side dodging tear gases and rubber bullets and gun battles, trying to negotiate for the other team to come and receive the president because they were not allowed. It was horrible, but you see, God has a perfect timing for everything, and He makes things beautiful in their time. And what was meant for evil, Chapata was meant for evil. It turned out, if you ask many Zambians, to be the one moment that changed a lot of hearts in terms of 100% transition to say this is the right man for this nation.
Yeah. Well, nothing else in this world, not even an army, is so powerful as an idea whose time has come. So perhaps that idea that Hakainde Hichilema was going to lead this country into the new dawn was perhaps just ripe. It was just time for that idea come to fruition, and people were perhaps just lined up to be helpers, dream helpers, so to speak. So we're marking 1 year into the New Dawn administration. And how do you think they've done so far? How do you think you guys have done? Because you're part of it.
Yes, I'm honored to be a part of it. The truth of the matter is there was so much mess in this country to levels which I don't even think the UPND itself fully comprehended, because there was so much secrecy and veiled activities that, and also we didn't have access to everything that was going on. We were looking at this elephant from the toes, maybe, or from the tail. So we didn't have a panoramic view of everything. So I think the first thing that had to be done was to stop the mess. The white people say, if you're in a ditch, the first thing you must do is stop digging. All right. So I think that was the gap stop measures that were done to stop the hemorrhaging economically and to ensure that servicing of debt, for example, obligations that were done prior to the party coming to power were fulfilled, that there was no default, confidence was rebuilt internationally as well as locally, fiscal policy, fiscal discipline was enhanced, and certain tough decisions had to be made. And so I think the first few months were really just making sure we don't throw the baby together with the bath water. And I think that's what happened. And in the end, we have the baby. And in the end, results have started to show. And there was a bit of turbulence at the beginning, a little bit of this, that, and the other. But there are certain things that have to be done right because they are generational solutions versus political emancipations or political incarnations or political whistleblowing. You know, this is not samba. We're not dancing to salsa. This is about life-changing policies that will touch your grandchildren, Linda, as well as my grandchildren.
Yeah.
So, with that said, I think the helm at the ship is steady. The ideology is now being understood. There's still some tough spots, such as cost of living is still high in certain instances. The dollar is going down, for example, and will continue to go down. Fuel is going down, will continue to go down. Inflation has gone down. There are many benchmarks that are going down and will continue to go down. And confidence will go up, liquidity will go up. Employment rate is already gone up by over 60,000 in the space of 12 months. That is unprecedented. And so as we criticize, let us be man enough to admit
Oh,
that a
women.
lot of things are happening as well.
Oh, women enough.
Oh,
just just a thought I throw it in there. We have to be politically correct.
that's a
Now,
for right.
from what you have just alluded to, I have three things that I would like to point out. The first thing you said, as white people say, now you guys have been accused of being in bed with white people. Your foreign policy is too aligned to the West, it's very Western aligned. How do you respond to critics? I know you're not the spokesperson, and these questions were meant for the spokesperson. But just generally, if you could just talk around the critics, the opposition, who are hell bent on criticizing the power, as actually as a motivational speaker, the power of allegiance. Perhaps you could talk around that. What is the importance of strategically aligning yourself with various people who perhaps possess something that you may not possess? What are the benefits?
So let us just be very practical. There is no nation that is an island. There is no man who is an island. And there is no political party that can promise to lead a nation without any sort of allegiance, coalition, understanding, memorandums of understandings, both regional and as well as international. And it's ironic to see some of the criticism of some of the policies. For example, the alignment with the IMF, International Monetary Fund, as an example. We know that historically in the previous regime, some people had first of all kind of given a cold shoulder to the International Monetary Fund, and then later on they needed the International Monetary Fund and quickly called them back. And even when the Minister of Finance could not meet them because he was unwell at that time, they themselves decided to the International Monetary Fund to show you that there's been no government in Zambian history that has never worked with, for example, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, African Development Bank, or even China Bank. You have to work with these institutions. If you look at debt restructuring, for example, of Zambia, on that debt restructuring committee, there are Europeans, Americans, and Asians, including Africans, on that committee. You
And
have
the
to realize,
Chinese, amongst the Asians, the Chinese are there.
I obviously mean Chinese because the bulk of our debt is held with China. So when we realign with people, it's not because they are choosing the music or they are paying the piper. It's because national development comes with alignment. And international activities will always affect local and micro activities, such as the wars in Ukraine, Balkans, is affecting all of us through shortage of wheat on the market, shortage of fuels, and so on and so forth, fertilizer. All these activities will always have an effect on Zambia. The funny part, and I don't like talking about the opposition because I think I personally need to give them time to rebrand, and I also personally would like to hear, or to hear, I was about to say, Linda, I would like to give them time to heal and truly, genuinely apologize to the Zambian people. And until they apologize to the Zambian people, they will never ever rise back. Not
But they
even like
have
a pin.
apologized.
No, they
No, they
haven't.
have already apologized.
No,
They said
they
the
are
other
not.
day that they've apologized, even though they weren't specific, but apparently they threw a general apology.
Linda, how would you feel if a man, not you in particular, let me just give you a general example. A man murders an individual and he
Mm,
runs away. As an example, not that they murdered anybody, but as an example.
mm,
And then
yeah,
years later, comes back and says, you know what? If I've ever wronged anybody, I just want to say sorry. That's not an apology because you haven't specifically stated the thing that aggrieved us. Until
yeah.
they do that, I mean, I'm not their consultant, I'm sure they have consultants. Until
Mm,
they do that, never penetrate the hearts of the majority Zambians. And that lesson must not be served only to the people who have just left power. That lesson must go to every politician. When you rise in power and in authority, always remember why God raised you. It's to serve people, not to
yeah.
serve yourself, serve or massage your ego, because one day, whatever goes up must come down. And when that
Yeah.
time comes, you come back to those same people.
You will need people. That is very true. So that was the first point. That just follow up question from what you said. The second one, you said things have gone wrong at the beginning of the New Dawn government, and you used the phrases this and that. I took note of that. So what is the this and that you feel could have gone wrong in this
Um,
government at the
Correct. I didn't say they went wrong, but they've been perhaps a misalignment of expectations. You know,
okay?
people, certain quarters may have expected certain implementations quicker
Mm-hmm.
than early expected,
Yeah.
and certain international forces such as the international wars, COVID, and so on and so forth, could have
Mm-hmm.
tempered and hampered implementation of certain policies. Even if we look judicially, for example, there have been one or two bottlenecks that perhaps have delayed certain cases to take off and so on and so forth. These are lessons. These are normal in any new um, project, especially in a project where the leader likes to walk in truth, likes to follow the law, and likes to walk in transparency. It's different from when a leader is ready to break any law, including changing the constitution to suit himself, as we were used to previously. So when you have a different um, choir master, the tunes will make sense with time. For example, the recruitment of teachers. Many Zambians wanted that list to come out 6 years ago. It took a few weeks, but when it came out, people were very, very happy. Medical personnel,
Yeah.
same thing. Soldiers, same thing. So sometimes we have to be a little bit patient, especially in African scenarios where we are used to so much lies and phoniness
Mm-hmm.
and brutality against constitutionalism. Things are
Mm-hmm.
different now, and we have to get used. I think Zambians are not only in a new dawn environment, but also a new culture and a new way of doing things.
Yeah. Um, like you said, I think there's this. I will allude to the aspect of some opposition leaders frowning upon the collaboration between Zambia and the West. Um, it's I think it's perhaps a colonial hangover coupled with the type of leadership that we've had in the past, where there has been very little trust. So this government, it's quite interesting that you clarify that there's a new commander in chief who's working under a completely different set of rules that perhaps Zambia hasn't seen in this 21st century. So it will be quite interesting to see. We're definitely keeping an eye on the proceedings, and I think this is one of the privileges that this government enjoys, because its own critics are the praise singers, the useful idiots, as some people call them. So within the UPND, the people who actually support the UPND and the Hichile Manalumango administration as a government, they have critics who mean well, who want to ensure that this government succeeds, and they're giving feedback because, quite frankly, with all due respect, there's no opposition. The checks and balances that are being offered at present are quite frankly laughable. So it is interesting that you mentioned that with a new leader, new set of rules, and fingers crossed, everything will work according to plan. Now, I want you to take you back to some stories. I want you to share with us one of your most memorable experience on the campaign trail, apart from the one that you just shared.
I'll never forget Mumbwa. Mumbwa was a wonderful experience. There had been a death in Mumbwa. There had been floods in Mumbwa. People were dispersed. And at that time, our president was not allowed to move anyway. Which time was he? Never. But anyway, and we had a word with the president, and we said to him, sir, the people of Mumbwa need you. Zambia needs you. We suggest that perhaps you take time to go and see them. We actually thought he would take much longer. He was like, okay, Mubita, make it happen. And so with that mandate, we collaborated with leaders in Mumbwa, provincial level, district level, and with the leaders at the community house. And within 48 hours, we were in Mumbwa. And when we reached Mumbwa, it was not even a campaign, it was a humanitarian visit. We were blocked by police officers. And the president said to me, they said, Mubita, what is going on? I said, Mr. President, they are not allowing us to go in. And at that time, the district leaders came to the road about 8 kilometers from Mumbwa. They say to us, whatever donations you've brought, give us, we go and donate. The president said succinctly, I didn't come all this way to turn back. I want to see the people of Mumbwa. I want to mourn with the bereaved, and I will go to Mumbwa. If you want to stay, you can stay. He jumped in the vehicle, and the vehicle started moving. I ran real fast to my vehicle. We started moving. I was like, you heard the man. And we got into Mumbwa, the police were there, and we just drove past them. I was like, how about that? You know, and so
it sounds like you are in one of those Bad Boys. Have you ever watched one of those Bad Boys movies? I think that's what it's called with, is it Will Smith or something?
it was always interesting to be around the president. In moments of danger, you expected him maybe to cower down or hide. Not him.
Yeah.
He would just step out and be in the line of fire, literally, or calm down a situation. And so when we came back from Mumbai, we got home around 1 in the morning. And as we were ushering him to his home, he said to me, Rita, well done.
Interesting. So spending so much time learning about his endearing characteristics, has that made you think, oh, perhaps I would love to have a go at this myself? Have you considered throwing your name in the hat to become the next Zambian president after the 2 terms of AA7 elapse?
When you work around a man like President Hakainde Hichilema, it teaches you many things. I remember in the campaign, some of the opposition leaders now who are saying this, that, and the other about him, they were taunting him and saying he will never be president because of tribe.
Yeah.
He has lost 6 times. How can he win it this time? And so being a man like that teaches you personal resolve, dedication. By the way, I haven't added, one of the reasons he won in 2021 is that he changed a lot of his strategy, and he allowed people to believe a lie about him whilst he was busy doing the truth that was in his convictions.
Mm. What
Having
was the
said,
lie that made people believe about him?
what was the lie?
Mhm.
That he was going to lose again. That there was no Tonga man that would ever be president. Maybe another Tonga, but not him. That was a lie.
After several times, several attempts, Mubita, even yourself, surely you did not believe that you're going to win. The president did not believe that he was going to win. What was different about 2021?
I can't speak for the president as to whether he didn't believe or not, but surely if you see a man deep in the ice with a glass of water, surely he must be thirsty. If you see a man in a nightclub booging on the floor, surely he wants to have fun. So I cannot say he didn't believe he wanted to win because he risked his life. The bullets in Pika, the petrol bombs in Mukushi, being denied access to fly in the airwaves, being arrested for 4 months. Surely he wanted to win. So I cannot say he didn't win. We all wanted to win, but like any battle, sometimes you never know when your breakthrough will come until the last moment. Even a pregnant woman doesn't always know whether she's going to need an epidural, cesarean section, or natural birth. Sometimes you only realize after you have the baby in your hands how much pain you were in as a mom. So to come to your question, would I throw in my heart? My heart, my name, whichever, I'm already in the game. You see, we should never decide when to serve. We should just serve. Some of the politicians who are talking now, they were ambassadors in a foreign country, quiet when youths were being killed.
Yeah.
They come back now and they're saying, this road is bad. You mean you just discovered now? You are only speaking now that you're no longer an ambassador? Leadership is not a hat, Linda. Leadership is the heart. Leadership is presence. Leadership is authenticity. Leadership is permission to die, permission to live, and not know the difference between the two.
Goodness, so profound. How is the president marking the first year anniversary? So profound. I can't add or take away anything from what you just said. I'll leave it at that. So for people to just let it simmer, let it sink in. That was so profound.
Thank you.
So, how do you think the president is marking this first year?
I wish Anthony was here to answer that question because Anthony is the official mouthpiece of the president.
Okay, let's
But
speculate. Let's speculate.
going by the little that I know, I'll answer with a philosophical answer.
I wouldn't expect anything less.
We were in Nakonde. We were just chased by police through the night. Came into Mbala, chased, went to Mpulungu, had a huge rally in Mpulungu, came to Kasama, and from Kasama all the way to Mungwi, came into Mansa. We got into Mansa 22 hours at the filling station. He meets people, and we've just come through all this 24 hours, 36 hours of marathon, of hell. We get into Mansa, Linda, and I'm like, okay, we are done now. The president looks at me and says, Mubita, we're going. I said, where, Mr. President? He says, I said, which Lusaka? Of course, I'm being a little bit dramatic. I cannot answer the question like that. I said, Mr. President, we're going. Linda, we left Mansa at 22, 23 hours. We were in Lusaka by 9 hours. The president got on a plane by 11 in the morning and had a rally in Mongu, in Kaoma, by 14 hours. You asked me how the president is marking his 1 year into office?
Goodness.
There is no such thing with that man. There is no such thing.
At this point, if I was able to whistle, I would have gone, perhaps you could help me, like, oh my God, kind of whistling.
Don't
It's
know
like
which
that sounds like
whistle.
a gruesome schedule.
There's a cowboy whistle and then there's a flirtatious whistle. I might say the wrong whistle.
And I was thinking more of the cowboy whistle. Oh my goodness. Well, talking of marking the date when he was, I presume he's going to commemorate the date that he became president elect, as well as the inauguration day, the 16th of August, as well as the 24th. Ka holiday chan 24th, surely there should be ka holiday, or even just ka half. I know you guys are terrible workaholics. Surely, shouldn't there be a little bit of time for the Zambian people to let their hair down? Mubita?
I'm personally not privy to such decisions. I'm sure between cabinet office and the governance machinery, government is a very big machine.
It
And
is.
obviously, State House, such decisions may or may not have been arrived on. I wish I knew, I don't. But I think it's part of the changing culture.
It
We
is.
were used, we were used to
Party after party.
yeah, we were just party after party. We were just chilling with the big boys, Kasaka Kandara. And it's part of the shift. And by the way, most people don't realize how much those holidays were hurting us economically in
How
terms of
expensive they are. Yeah.
banking days and low productivity days.
Yeah.
So I think Zambians are slowly adjusting to the new way of doing things. And I think
Mhm.
that is an amazing phenomenon.
Which is quite fantastic, but will be quite nice to also just have people won't ask for another holiday next year, but this is like the second independence, surely. Mr. President, if you're listening, I think the Zambian people could do with a little bit of a downtime to let their hair down, maybe just a few hours, half a day tops. um will be quite nice. Now, what are you up to? People are curious. What are you up to? I know what you're up to, but the people are curious. What is Mubita now up to? Are you at
Well,
liberty to explain?
I can explain. Yes, I am serving in the government, and that's it.
Okay, that is a good enough answer. So, Mr.
And
Nawa
let
is
me,
serving
let
in
me,
the.
let me just let me just appreciate the
Mhm,
care, the love, the concern that Zambians have towards politics in general and
mhm.
towards individuals that they perceive to have worked tirelessly and represented their positions. I recognize that and I appreciate it. But I think it is very important that we understand that campaigns are over now. It's
Yeah.
time to serve. And whether you are making tea, you are polishing shoes for the king, you're driving the king, or you are just making the wristwatch for the king, you are still a kingmaker.
It's still service. Absolutely. Now, I want to take you all the way back because this is not a program about policy. It's supposed to be about a band of brothers, your experience, your journey before elections, before actually during the campaign period, all the way to election time. Um, what was going through your mind when you were going to vote on the 12th? And where did you vote?
So I voted at Kabulonga polling station, the same polling station as the president. So it was a strategic move.
Mhm,
There was the ins and outs towards that because it needed to be done. We needed to protect the principle. We needed to make
mhm,
sure we did the vote. As I was going to vote, to be honest with you, I struggled with so many things, including my safety, my security. I wondered if I
mhm.
was going to be safe. Uh, we had a court case that almost guaranteed a 5-year prison term for us. There was a lot going on. And prior to elections, I wanted to run away from Zambia. I thought about it. I thought
Mm.
maybe at least exercise my right to vote. Then I
Yeah.
sneak out of the country. Then I say to myself, but I want to be free where I will go.
Mm.
And why should I run away from my own nation just
And
because
you wanted to be part of history as well.
I felt I was already a part of history, but
Mm.
I didn't want to be on the run from doing the right thing. I want, if I'm going to be on the run, let me know
Mm.
I've done something wrong. And I knew I hadn't. So I stayed. But it was a lot of a confluence of feelings and a
Mm.
very, very diabolical situation to find yourself in. And so when I voted around 10, and then we positioned ourselves waiting for the principal who voted around 11:30, and
Mm.
there was commotion at Kabulonga. People stopped voting, started shouting and chanting, "We want change, we want change." It was just
Mm.
so beautiful. And at that point, there was no ounce of doubt in my head that we had
Mm.
crossed them.
And at that point, you knew you were part of something bigger than yourself.
I knew it, I felt it, I saw it, and I couldn't cry. I mean, you and I have shared one picture before from Kabulonga voting. I still had to keep my eyes and do the job, and had to escort the principal from voting. I ran beside his vehicle all the way up
Mm.
to Kabulonga shopping mall. My jacket was torn, my tooth was missing, my shoe was zigzag. I was just about, I was beside myself.
Mubita, you looked as smart as ever. Come on, slight exaggeration there. There was nothing out of place. Your hair, your glasses were exactly where they should have been. But I get your point. And at that point, there were some reporters, bloggers, shall I say, who had some negative views, sentiments about that incident, but they didn't understand that you had three barriers protecting the principal at that point. Do you remember the incident that you just alluded to?
I think presidential security, whether in the opposition, um, especially in the opposition, I can't speak for it now, but in the
Mhm.
opposition, was just as important as it is now, if not more, because the enemy we faced then was bigger than us by all
Yeah.
accounts.
Mm.
And their
The plan was
conviction,
to eliminate him. When they tried with the Bill 10 to to get him off the ballot, it didn't work. And there was some, goodness, I can't believe I'm even saying that. Some who were saying if this man was in another country that we cannot mention, this person would be dead, alluding to the current president. So the plan was to literally eliminate him. So security was quite critically important for everyone involved, was it not?
it was important and daunting. And I'll just give you one simple activity of that very day that most people don't
Mhm.
know about. And I'll say it because it's in public domain, it's not state secret or
Yes.
anything.
Yeah, 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 sure.
When the president arrived that day of voting, everybody, all the reporters ran to his normal white car and expecting him to come out. And it's because it's tinted, and he opened the doors and out came somebody else. And all the reporters were just like, oh, they were so mad, and everybody. And then now they ran to the other white car, which, as you may recall, that was the first time he was using that newer vehicle, or that
Mhm.
and but everything there was meticulous. They were decoys, they were layers, they were levels, they were there was intel, there was all kinds of activities days prior, during, after, and of course I can't disclose certain things, but
Of course.
uh, he ran a tight shift.
He did, and he still does. What are your hopes for the future, for yourself, your family, as well as the Zambian people?
Well, for myself, I want to continue to be Mubita now, wherever I go.
The
And I want to
Lozi boy.
continue, the Lozi boy. I want to continue serve, to serve my communities, to serve my people, to serve my continent. I have a passion for Africa. I have a passion
Mhm.
for international affairs. I have a passion for politics. I cannot run away from it. I'm already heads and shoulders, knees and toes deep into this. So I want to continue to do that. In terms of family, as you know, I've settled down now. I couldn't even afford to settle down Thank you, Linda. I've settled down with a wonderful, lovely person, and God is blessing us. I want to continue to do that, take care of my children, my extended family. I have a very, very big family. And for this nation, I just want people, more people to sit at the table. I want more people to share this cake called Zambia. I want more opportunity for young people, for retirees, soldiers, teachers. I want a wonderful health care, a wonderful this, that, and more grace to our country with good laws. No more this, no more bad. We went through a very bad, I think Zambia needed some therapy, and we are slowly coming out of rehab, and I'm looking forward to the exciting ventures ahead of us.
That is wonderful. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of time. A lot of people have been sharing. We have got a barrage of messages. I completely apologize if I'm not going to get through as many as possible. Please keep them coming. We have got very complimentary things. Ask questions. They're just admiring your suit and God knows what. Who's your barber? Who shaves you? And come on, guys, be logical. I mean, this is a serious conversation. Muke says, wow, Mubita, you are really talented, my dear brother, because people had different perspectives that you have been neglected. These are the kind of people needed to be needed in society. That is really good. Mary, who is our regular viewer, says, yep, leadership is a service. Yes. Servant-led leadership. Who else is saying something? Gosh, they're coming. They're coming thick and fast. Interesting how it is assumed that Mubita should have had a government position too. Maybe in the game of war, you don't use all your best pieces at the same time. Just thinking. Now, he's thinking like a shushu. I like that. I like critical thinkers. So that's really good. Goodness. Then we have Fidelis also saying something there. More of our regular viewers, Davis Simbai, not commenting. It's too hot here in Kent. Oh my goodness, Davis, isn't it just? It was like 36 degrees earlier. You're right. Come on, but you can at least type. You're not using. He says he's not commenting. It's too hot. That is great. Who else is there? Everyone is just following and enjoying the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Any last sentiments?
I want to say thank you to you, Linda, personally, for your hustle, your tussle, and the hard work you put in this liberation struggle for our nation. It's not just you; it's the whole Bakwetu TV and many others. I just want to thank Zambians in general for choosing with the conscience, for standing up for justice and equity. And I just want to say to all of us, our shoulders are heavy, all of us. Our footsteps are fewer behind us, but our potential ahead of us is greater as a nation, as a people. Let us redefine the destiny of our country through setting new standards, philosophically, ideologically. I'm not so sure about constitutionally, but certain things could be amended so that there are no lacunas and gray areas. But more than anything, let us all work extremely hard to transform the next 20 years of our nation, regardless of who runs this country. Let us have a better country than we've ever had.
Indeed. Beautifully summed up. And the only thing that is left to be said here is nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And I think this Hichilema Nalumango idea has come and has come to fruition. And it's time for all of us to roll up our sleeves, work hard. Those days of depending on handouts, kumpira koka something, those days are gone. It's time for us to rebuild this country brick by brick from ground up. This has been the Linda Banks show on TV Bakwetu, and I've been your host, Linda Banks, with my special guest, Mr. Mubita. See now the Lawsy boy. We were meant to be joined by Mr. Anthony Bwalya, who has just sent a text. I will not read it, but he's just profusely apologizing. He has been working on the Copper Belt. I'm sure you have been following him on different radio stations. I think this morning he was on, is it Chengelo radio station? So we forgive, well, I shouldn't be too quick to forgive, actually. I think I need to give him a bit of a hard time before I forgive him, just to get him through the paces. From me, it's good night. God bless you, and God bless our country. Till next time.